To lead in a world that never stops evolving, you need insights from those who are driving change. Welcome to Breakthrough Innovations, where we bring together the top leaders and innovators who are reshaping their industries. I'm JL Heather, the Principal Executive Coach at Center, and in each episode I sit down with game-changing executives who share the strategies, insights, and challenges that fuel their success. In the next 20 minutes, you'll gain practical takeaways to drive your own breakthroughs. So if you're ready to stay ahead, join us here on Breakthrough Innovations. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Breakthrough Innovation. Today, we're hosting two extraordinary leaders in the world of digital transformation and strategy, Matt McLarty and Stephen Fishman, CTOs at Boomi. Together, they've authored the insightful book, Unbundling the Enterprise, APIs, Optionality, and the Science of Happy Accidents, a practical guide for business leaders navigating the complexities of innovation in a digital-first world. Matt and Stephen bring decades of combined experience in APIs, automation, software architecture, and digital business strategies. With lessons drawn from global leaders like Google, Amazon, and Coca-Cola, their book provides a blueprint for embracing flexibility, unlocking growth, and fostering happy accidents through the API-driven optionality. Get ready to explore how their methodologies can empower organizations to thrive. Matt, Stephen, I'm really excited to talk about some happy accidents. So, hey, Matt and Stephen, let's start off with kind of where you guys come from and how you got to where you are now and started with the book. Matt, why don't you go first?
Sure. Yeah, I started my career in technology, sort of happenstance, but I worked in financial services for a decade before kind of really getting into this world of post-web web services and looking at integration, how companies were connecting their systems and utilizing the web for that, which sort of led me into this world of APIs where companies are kind of beneath the surface of the web. We may all think of the web as browsers and websites and so on, but this is really how you connect different businesses together via the web through web APIs, and have been writing that for a while. So I think the interesting thing to me is a lot of companies' APIs are still a new thing, and so we're working with companies across the whole spectrum, all industries. But there's so many lessons to learn and so many paved roads there that it really is a key to innovation and strategy for pretty much every company out there.
Okay, so I guess similar to Matt, like software kind of found me after I finished up school. I finished up my master's program at Georgia Tech, and during my process going to school, I took a job to help pay my way through school and just developing software. One thing led to another, and that became my profession. I found APIs also found me doing some work in a global consultancy where, like in early 2000s, it was just something that we did for the purposes of a financial services project, and I loved it. I was very inspired by it, and it's been a theme throughout a lot of my software development and architecture and digital business type of career.
Awesome. So it sounds like you both kind of had a similar path with APIs finding you, which I love. That kind of sounds like a happy accident right there. I'm curious though, from where you were, like, how did you get to Unbundling the Enterprise? What inspired you to start the book? And then I'm curious, for people who haven't read the book yet, how does it help organizations address the challenges that they're facing in the digital economy?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit on the origin story, and then Stephen can sort of chime in with where it helps in a fundamental way. But so I think I found Stephen, over 10 years ago. We were both writing about APIs and sort of sharing the stories that we're seeing, and we'd connected and stayed in touch since. We then worked together prior to joining Boomi at MuleSoft, again, working in the API space. But when we were there, we were really working with a lot of companies and really focusing on the business side of APIs. There's lots of technical depth that you can go into on APIs, but we were feeling like there was a bit of a gap on the general knowledge in the industry around just how powerful APIs could be as business tools. And so we decided, let's give it a shot and write a book. We talked to Gene Kim, who's been amazing. He's, his publishing company, IT Revolution, is the publishers of the book. And he was very much into this idea of optionality. And we were really talking about how fundamental APIs were. And he really saw potential in a book there. But when we wrote it, we took, I think, a great step in retrospect was, rather than go in with our thesis fully baked, we sort of had a lot of conversations with companies where we knew they'd gotten value out of the space to really fill in the blanks and the details and actually from that research derive what our thesis statement was on the book, which did change a couple of times. And we really ended up like, we didn't start out with happy accidents in the title, didn't start out with optionality in the title. Really, it was just sort of unfolded from the interviews that we did. So I think there's been a lot written on the technology side of APIs in the world. There's been a lot about digital innovation. We're really linking those things together for people.
So yeah, Matt told it very well. Like, same story of like, we talked about writing a book, but we didn't want to write a book that was already written. Like, here's how engineers or operators do these certain things, and here's the best practices in that sort of sense from a very technology up model. We thought there was a gap, like Matt said, from business down. And I think like a big part of that reason is I think we've both been through the grinder of watching enterprises take what, technology teams know is, best practice for balancing short and long-term concerns, and keep grinding them and compressing them over and over and over again. Yeah. And we didn't think that was like malintended or anything like that. We thought it was just a fundamental misunderstanding and a mismatch between what teams talk about. And so we joined the other side of the business equation.
You defected.
Help the business teams understand and fully get, why are these decisions not really technical decisions? Why are they actually financially, impactful decisions? And how can you optimize your ROI for things that you're attempting to do anyway by applying just a little bit of technology best practice, and how that in the end actually turns into money, into upside. So like, that was a big part of our goal. And like I do believe, every review that we've seen or people that we've talked to since then, they get not only the mission, what we're trying to do, they get the science of that you can actually create and set your enterprise up for innovation and insight to find you at a much more accelerated pace over and over again. And that's, when we say happy accident, that's a lot of what we're talking about like setting this table up so that these innovative moments that resonate with your customers and or internal partners have this asymmetric value potential, and that these things will find you and you'll be able to see them and exploit them much faster if you align to the methodology that we're laying out there, which is the OOPS methodology inside the book.
Well, and I love the concept of happy accidents. I love the phrase. I love the everything that it invokes when I say it. What I am curious, you gave a little bit of detail on the happy accidents, but maybe can you give a good example of what a happy accident might look like?
I think the big happy accident is, I think, a little bit harder to describe. That's the AWS moment. We talk about that a lot in the book. There's several different chapters devoted to it. But I think the one that's more easily understood by just a wide variety of people is Google Maps, in that everybody's familiar with using Google Maps on an everyday basis. That wasn't the accident. The actual accident is that Google sells the API product behind the Maps interface that powers it all. And that was just the way their engineers built it. A bunch of decontextualized APIs, a web interface that knows how to take advantage of that information and turn it into something. And accident happened. People started calling Google and saying, hey, we found this API behind the, by viewing source, and we'd like to pay for it. Right. So the accident was that Google never intended to sell that information, to sell that type of digital product access, but like masses showed up, and it's now like a multi-million-dollar annual revenue thing that powers all embeddable maps around the internet. And that future found them. They did not plan for it. We talked in depth with the Google product managers at the time, Thor Mitchell. He said it exactly like that. Hey, can we please pay for this? We're betting our business on it. We don't think it'll be around unless we pay you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, we talk about them as accidents. And it really was like everybody we talked to when we were asking them the story, there was some accident thing or moment of serendipity along the way. And so, in retrospect, we can say, well, those were legitimately accidents that turned out to be fortunate. What if you could actually engineer those accidents, right? So then Stephen mentioned the OOPS methodology, right, which is really the reason we call it OOPS, other than the wonderful linguistic tie-in to the happy accidents is it's three words starting with OP, right? Optionality, which is this property of when you build things, you want to build things in a way that allows you to solve your current problems, but create as much future potential as possible. And that's where APIs play a fundamental role because they are decontextualized, can be used in different ways. So that's sort of preparing the conditions for accidents to happen. Then there's the opportunism, which we introduce something called value dynamics, which allows you to map, especially in a very complex, increasingly complex digital ecosystem that's out there in every industry. You got so many different stakeholders. You can't just look at customer, product, and map things that way. There's all sorts of partners, suppliers, and so on. So it's a way of mapping that out so that you can recognize when the good accidents are happening. And then optimization, which is really around creating feedback loops within that ecosystem, and where you can then, so you sort of have the optionality to create the conditions for accidents to happen, opportunism to recognize when the accidents are happening in a positive way, and then the optimization to really double down and get the most out of those accidents. So that's what the methodology is all about. And I think that really is sort of the thesis of the book, which is like, rather than making these big bets on long-term strategies, create an environment where you can have a lot of little accidents happen and find the good ones.
But it's kind of that idea that genius is 90% preparation and 10% inspiration. I like that. You're creating the environment where unexpected connections can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I think that's great. Now, I think you do have a lot of older legacy type organizations. And I think the word that I hear thrown around a lot is the digital settlers. What do they need to do to kind of become more modern and to kind of compete with the digital pirates when we start talking about this innovation landscape?
Matt, you go first.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of, I've worked in big organizations, right? I mentioned that I started my career for 10 years in the banking sector, which is as legacy as it gets. The funny thing is, it's almost like banking was first mover into the digital space, which has been an encumbrance ever since, because there's so much, you talk about legacy technology, there's so much legacy there. I think there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen. There's a lot of habits that have formed over the years. And I think in terms of a mind shift, one of the things that we've seen a lot is just this idea of the mentality around delivery being just deliver this new thing as quickly as possible. And that actually turns out to be extremely limiting. And we've, Stephen and I, we're talking about some of the meat grinder that we've been through in our careers, seen so many times when it's like, if you build it this way with this optionality, you're going to take a little more time, maybe not, but maybe it'll take a little bit more time, but you're going to open up so much future potential that, but that mentality of no, cut every corner possible, just get it out there. So I think I think a lot of it is about unlearning, but I'm interested in Stephen's take on this one as well.
So two of the phrases that we use in the context of the book is shortcut by default or decomposition by default. Shortcut by default is what Matt just spoke to, which is you have your value stream leaders or your scrum leaders, whomever, who are saying, I don't want to spend one penny more than I absolutely have to in order to get this thing out so I can get some results from it, and so forth. And we don't, there's just so much data in the book, we didn't invent this. It's the data shows on that is while it may get you the first thing out the door in a very isolated circumstance, it doesn't actually yield the results that financial people are actually looking for. Instead, because it closes off the 99 other options of how you might use this thing, in that if the Google team chose the shortcut by default and said, what is the quickest way we can create this Maps interface, that accident never would have found them, because it wouldn't have, the value of the decontextualized service would not have been a thing for somebody to find and use. And that's not just Google. There are literally 20 or more specific, accidents in the book that we speak to. And that's just the ones that we found and wrote about. Right. They're all over the place. Now, the other side is decomposition by default. And where we say that it doesn't mean make an API for everything and break everything down to the smallest possible service that you can possibly make it. It instead is there to try to restore the balance, where the default is, hey, this is the way we build things in order to leave that future asymmetric win potential open to us. And if there is a reason for us to accelerate this, particular project for whatever reason, then we can make compromises on that. But the onus of proving that is actually on the business team about why are we going to close out this other 90% of optional futures and not be ready for them. And that being able to have that conversation on a level playing field is a big thing that we are attempting to get organizations to see. And that the second method, which Matt mentioned, of opportunism, is the ability to figure out what's the right balance between the two. This is going to benefit our ecosystem in ways X, Y, and Z. Therefore, we should accelerate this or keep it aligned with best practices. Yeah. And that when these capabilities match up to the ecosystem opportunities you're intending to create, that's what's going to create this seriously asymmetric. We use that term very intentionally. Yeah. This little amount in, big win out. Those 10x wins. And we can, like, over and over and over again, every single executive that we interviewed, more than 20 around the globe, said the exact same thing. My engineers and architects wanted to build it this way. Future found us. Boom. Big exponential event.
And we
over
have
and over and over again.
And some great examples. Like, I think Cox Automotive really stands out as a company that adapted that way, and some great insights from David Rice in the book on that. Coca-Cola is a great one for showing how they've leveraged this approach specifically for innovation and to technology innovation, technology introduction, and innovative business application of new technologies.
Yeah, and it's not all to sell a bunch of data like the way that Google did for Google Maps. Sure. There are 4 different patterns that we've articulated throughout the book to derive like these asymmetric wins that just sequentially just pile upon and compound. And like I think we've shared a little bit here, not just for digital giants like Google, Amazon, et cetera, but the book is chock full of examples from the digital settler group that you mentioned, whether it's Cox Automotive or Lowe's or Best Buy, Coca-Cola, like over and over and over again. Yeah. Same story for all of them.
No, and I love that. And unfortunately, we're going to have to start wrapping up here shortly. Before we do, though, I'm curious, real quickly from each of you, what's the one thing you hope leaders take away from your book when they read it?
I'll go first this time. One of the phrases that Matt and I have aligned around is preparation beats prediction, in that a lot of organizations are led in a way of, like, here's this big idea that we think is going to be the future, and let's put all of our eggs in that basket. And that will work if that future actually realizes itself. But future telling is a very risky thing. Instead, we believe in preparation, meaning prepare your organization for many futures, and then when the future actually arrives, then you'll be ready to exploit it. The example we all see every day right now is the AI, mass proliferation. Why is it that so many different companies were able to inject AI co-pilots into all their enterprise apps at a really rapid fashion without breaking any of their roadmaps? Because they were already decomposed. Yeah. That's why. Because part of the science of the book is that by embracing this methodology, you will be able to adapt to the future in the most rapid fashion, regardless of whatever that future is. So when future X arrives, you will be ready to exploit it, because your ability to change will be faster, your ability to see what is actually valuable will be faster, and the value will be much closer to the surface. That's what decontextualized services do. So cheaper, faster, better, you get all 3.
I don't have any, I completely support that as the thesis. I would just say we have a nice little analogy with, you mentioned digital pirates and digital settlers. We have a nice little pirate tale that opens the book that puts that in analogy form of stop trying to find a map with where X marks the spot, right? Find a new way of digging for treasure. But I'll leave that for the readers to read that prologue.
No, I love that. Leave them with a little bit of a cliffhanger, and hopefully they'll go grab the book. Now, the last thing before we wrap up, what is the best way for people to get into contact with you and collaborate with you?
LinkedIn for me. It's I'm at Matt McLarty BC. Actually, I'm Matt McLarty BC on most social spots, but I find LinkedIn is the best spot to engage. We're pretty current and sharing there as well. With
Yeah,
current
if you
stuff.
looked up Stephen Fishman or Stephen Fishman Boomi on LinkedIn, you'll find me really quick.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you both. This has been a really great conversation. I did not have a chance to get the book before we sat down to talk, but I will probably be getting a copy of the book after this because I'm curious. I want to read about some of these happy accidents, and I want to know what the pirate story at the beginning is, Matt. So I appreciate that.
There we go. I got you on the hook. Okay, perfect.
Exactly. You got me on the hook. So thank you both. It was a really great conversation. Thank you for everyone who was listening all the way to the end. If you found value in the episode, please leave a review, a like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you know anyone who could benefit from the book that Matt and Stephen are writing, the Unbundling the Enterprise, APIs, Optionality, and the Science of Happy Accidents, send them this episode, give them a little bit of a heads up on what's there and what's available, and connect them with Stephen and Matt. Lastly, remember to try and take one actionable insight from today's conversation, apply it, and let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear about your progress. Thanks again, Matt and Stephen, and thank you to everyone else. We'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.